Hey, should we get started? Yeah. All right, this side wants to get started. Thank you. What about this side? Okay, good. So there's a bunch of people out there still trying to figure out where they need to go, and I have learned this really cool trick to help them figure out really quickly. But I need you guys' help, okay? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to count to 3, and on 3, I want you to scream and yell as if I just gave away $1 million. Can you do that for me? Ready? 1, 2, 3. Yeah! Oh, yeah, it's working. Look, they're running. All right. Again, folks, my name is Christian Sadler. I've been a full-time entrepreneur, real estate investor for 13 years now, believe it or not. And I will say that before I connected with the group, I was like the least likely to ever be up in front of a stage or even wearing a suit for that matter. Just to kind of give you an idea, I got kicked out of every school after grade school. And somehow they let me up here. I don't get it. But there was a blessing in that, especially when I got kicked out of my junior high school. So I was raised way out on the west side of the valley, out in Magna, Utah, raised by a single mom of 4. And it's not a poverty story or anything like that. You don't need to feel sorry for me. My mom is truly my hero. She made sure we always had, food on the table, clothes on our back, all those types of things. But there was stuff that wasn't an option for me in my younger years, as far as like playing sports and extracurricular activities and things like that. So I kind of found my own extracurricular activities, if I want to be honest with you guys. And some of them weren't good. In fact, some of them weren't legal. Just trying to be open with you. Anybody ever play with dry ice bombs as a kid? A few of you? Okay. Maybe somebody stuck them in a mailbox here or there? Okay, the frowns. I apologize. I did a lot of stupid stuff as a kid just to make it simple and plain. And in my junior high, the worst GPA I ever got was a .04. And so you can see why they wanted me gone, right? So I went to Central High School in 8th grade. And Central High School was what's called an alternative school. Any alternative kids in the room? Yeah, we didn't raise our hand back then either. So I went to this alternative school, and there was a blessing in that, because growing up out in Magna, I had only met working class folks, right? I mean, that's just who you meet out there. I had great examples as far as character and hard work and all those things, but I had never met anybody who had done anything substantial with their money. And so when I went to Central High School, I started meeting kids from all over the valley, and some of them had wealthy parents. And I started paying attention at a very young age that almost all of these parents that had the lifestyle that I wanted, I'm talking like, 4-wheelers for every single kid, plus a boat, and like 5 vacations a year, right? I noticed that these parents always had something to do with real estate. Either they owned rental properties, or they, I had a friend who his dad was a builder. And so I decided, and maybe this makes me a dweeb, but at 17 years old, I said, I'm going to be a real estate investor. And the only issue was I didn't know how I was going to do it. And I couldn't exactly go to these parents because I was the kid that they didn't want their kids hanging out with, if you know what I mean. So where do you guys think that I went to try and learn real estate investing? 17, 18 years old. Where would you go? No, I didn't go to the GPS. Internet, I heard, but this was like 15 years ago. So if you guys remember the internet 15 years ago, it was like some puppy videos. There wasn't a whole lot on there yet. Back then, they had this thing that was like the internet. It was these big sheets of paper that had a bunch of words on them and some pictures, and they rolled them up and threw them on your doorstep. You remember those? Newspapers? Yeah, so I would get the newspaper. In fact, somebody told me when I was younger, if you want to get into real estate, you can go to the newspaper and go to the legal section, and you can find foreclosures. So I start looking through the newspaper, and in the newspaper, I find these full spread ads of these big gurus that are coming into town, right? And it's like, we have this, this published author that is coming into town. He's going to teach you all his secrets, and it's for 3 days and 3 days only. We're going to be at the, the airport Marriott or wherever it was. And I got excited. So I would go to these seminars. And the author was never there, by the way, just to let you know. And instead, there was these guys that were really good at selling another program. And so The first one, I was 18 years old, the first one that I ever bought. And this guy was really good. He was in the front of the room. He said, for the first 20 people to the back of the room, you're going to get my personal cell phone number. So I run to the back of the room. I put $3,000 on a credit card, and I took 2 days off of work. And that was a big deal for me back then. So I graduated high school half a year late, but I made it. And then I went into steel fabrication. And it was 12-hour days, 7-day weeks, rotating shifts. They were always switching my schedule up on me. And I was paycheck to paycheck. So taking a couple of days off of work wasn't like just an easy thing. It meant I had to figure out how to pay the bills differently, right? And at the end of these 2 days, after all this excitement, they said, we've taught you just enough now that you can hurt yourself. What you really need to do is spend $10,000 and come to our 5-day boot camp out in Florida. I was less excited than the guy up on stage, obviously. I was mad. I kind of still had anger issues back then, if I'm being honest. I threw away all the information. I couldn't believe it. I got taken. But it wasn't very long before I was up late at night. And what comes on late at night? Infomercials. Oh, yeah, those infomercials. And they're good. And so this one, and maybe some of you called off this one too. They said it was like $10.99 money back guarantee. We're going to teach you how to buy properties pennies on the dollar. So I called. And I'm like, $11. I've got nothing to lose. And after a series of phone calls over the next 4 days, I ended up spending $6,000 on a coach. And my first coaching session, he says, you're in one of the worst states to be buying tax liens. We're going to have to, and it was a tax lien course that I bought, by the way. So we're going to have to look at California, and we're going to have to look at other places. And man, I still studied the information the best I could, but I didn't feel like I was even further ahead by the time I was done. And this just kept happening. It was like a cycle. All these programs that I would go through, they just wanted to sell me more information, send me on a cruise, put me on a bus tour, spend money on coaching, whatever it was. And there was never anybody here that I could meet and work with. And then I came across this little sign on the side of the road. You guys ever seen those cheesy looking handwritten signs? We buy houses, stop foreclosure, those types of things. So this was talking about, a real estate investor that's looking to build his team. And so I call and I think to myself, I'm just thinking, if I could actually meet somebody local who was doing it, I know I've got the work ethic. If they would be willing to show me how, this is my way in. And so I called, and this was way back when The Apprentice was still on TV, right? So I'm thinking I'm going to come down and meet some investor, sit across the desk from this high-power investor. He's going to interview me to become a part of the team. And I showed up into a room like this. And my skepticism went through the roof. I mean, I sat at the back, arms folded, what are they going to try and sell me now? And quite frankly, back then the presentation wasn't that good. And I was ready to walk out. And the difference from going there versus everything else that I'd been to is at the end, they started introducing me to person after person after person who was actually investing in real estate. People that were living my childhood dream. And so I thought to myself, if these people can do it and they've used this system to make it happen, maybe there's an opportunity here. I gotta look further, right? And after doing more and more investigation and jumping on board the team, it took me about 4.5 months from when I jumped in with both feet to be able to walk away from my job for the rest of my life. And thank you. Since then, I've been a full-time entrepreneur, real estate investor. It's been over 13 years now. I've been able to do a lot of amazing things, travel the world, right? I get to sit on the board for a local nonprofit that helps the homeless. I get to do things that I never thought were an option before. I've been written up in a book with high-level entrepreneurs like Timothy Ferriss from the 4-Hour Workweek. My life is just dramatically different than it was back then. And the biggest thing that I was looking for was freedom. And that's what I gained, is I get to choose what my time looks like. So all I'm saying is stick around and listen very closely to what Mitch Nelson has to say, because it could have a dramatic positive impact on your life. Before I bring him up here, I want to go over a couple of housekeeping items. So first thing is, and I got to click this updates real quick. Remind me later. Try it now. All right, cool. I want to have some visuals here because it reminds me what to say. Photos are okay. Mitch loves it when you take his picture, okay? So take as many pictures as you want, but please, no flash photography. Also, if you're taking pictures of the slides, we ask that you take those pictures for your own use only. So please don't post those out on social media and those types of things. Also, no recording. If you guys want a professional version of this, we just want to control, the quality of how this information goes out into the world. So if you want a professional version, talk to us and we'll do our best to accommodate with that. Also, if you have anything that makes noise, whether that's something in your pocket or something breathing, do us a favor and just manage that to your best of your ability so that everybody else can pay attention. So if you have a phone call, I've learned this really cool trick. Just answer it and walk out all the way out the door before you say hello. They'll hear all kinds of rumbling and they'll stay on the line, don't worry. I don't see any children in the room, but if I guess I won't address it because there's no children. Just take anything that makes noise all the way outside of the room so the rest of us and the rest of the people that are here to learn can do so effectively. Is that fair? Yes. Okay, cool. So I'm going to bring Mitch up here, and he's a really good friend of mine. He's been involved in this business much less time than I have. He's been about 4 years in real estate, and in that amount of time, he's flipped over 30 properties. He actually works on 5 flips at a time. This guy's picked up rental properties in multiple different states. He's been able to be a best-selling author. He's been featured on a local TV show because of the success that he's had in his business. And above all that, for me, what sets Mitch apart is how many people he has helped get their start in real estate investing. So just do me a favor and welcome Mitch Nelson.
Appreciate it. How we doing tonight? We good? Good. Well, listen, we've got some incredible financial strategies we're going to share with you. We've got some awesome real estate strategies that we're going to give you tonight. So what I want you to do is just turn to your neighbor and just apologize for all the brain matter that's going to splatter all over the place because we're going to blow your mind. It's going to be awesome. Thank you. Well, I love a crowd that actually participates, and it's awesome. I'm not a TV screen, by the way, so we're going to do a little back and forth tonight. And the more you give me, the more I can give back to you. So let's have a conversation. It's going to be awesome. Now, listen, a couple of things real quick. I am not a licensed anything. I'm just a guy who started as a student and have been very successful with it. And I found my passion is sharing what I've learned with other people. So I'm not an attorney. I'm not an accountant. We're going to talk about some financial strategies tonight. I'm not a financial planner. So don't take any of the things that I say and go try to apply them. Maybe talk to your professionals first. But you're going to see some pretty cool stuff, and we're going to use some math, which is pretty awesome and hard to argue, so it's going to be good. Now, I want to start with a story. This is a story about a young man who loved building cars from the ground up. He would find scrap metal, and he'd weld a frame together, and he'd hand bend the sheet metal to make the body, and he'd do the upholstery himself, and he'd build the engine himself, and these cars turned out beautiful. And he'd drive them around town, and people would see them, and they'd want to buy them. So quickly, he got the idea, well, I should just start a business, right? I mean, how hard is it to break into the auto industry? So that's what he did. He started a business building cars and just started selling them locally, right? And a few orders came in, and his business model is he'd take the down payments from orders and he put the money into a single car. And he did all the work on the car so that they would turn out beautiful and he could control the quality and everything. And this worked for a while, and he made a lot of money doing it. But before long, he became really popular. And he got so backlogged with orders that people started asking for refunds on their down payments. The problem was, where was the money? It was in the car, right? So this kind of got out of control, and he couldn't give back some of the money that was being asked for, and he ended up going bankrupt. He went out of business because he was too popular. How bad would that suck? Now, a few years went by. He went back to what he knew, right? He went back to being a mechanic, went back to working on the farm. He grew up as a farmer. His dad was a farmer, just so he could pay off some of his debts. A few years went by. He's a middle-aged man by now, and he had some new designs, never really lost his passion for building cars. So he tried it again. He started a new business and used his new designs. The problem is he used the same business model. What happens when you do the same thing over and over again? What type of results can you expect? Same results. And that's exactly what happened. He went bankrupt the second time. This time, licking his wounds, he went back to what he knew, tried to pay off some debt, but said to himself, you know what? I guess I just don't have what it takes to be an entrepreneur. I just don't have the gene or the bone or whatever it is to do this business running stuff. So he just kind of gave up. He consigned himself to working a job for the rest of his life until one day he was at the state fair. And he was wandering around the fair and looking at the different attractions and wandering into the different tents to see what was for sale. And accidentally wandered into the backside of the butcher's tent. Now, front of the butcher's tent, you have the nice cuts of meat for sale. Back end of the butcher's tent was a little bit different. He saw a bunch of men dressed up in white lab coats with plastic aprons on. There was a big steel table, long steel table, and one end of the steel table, there were some animal carcasses. First guy would pull up an animal carcass, make some cuts, push it down to the next guy, he'd do some more cuts. All the way to the last guy would pull off a sheet of butcher paper off of a pile there or a roll, and he'd wrap up the cut of meat and push it to the front for sale. Now, the man marveled at this because he knew it'd take a single butcher a full day to carve up an animal, but this group of guys was doing it in a fraction of the time. And so he started, the wheels started turning. He started thinking, well, wait a second, what if we ran this backwards? What if we had some car parts on this side, and the first guy put some car parts together and pushed it down to the next guy, and he put some more car parts on it, and by the end of the line, we have a full car. Who am I talking about? Henry Ford, nailed it. Yeah, so here's the thing. Based on that idea, Henry Ford started a third company. He called that company Ford Motor Company. It's been around for 120 years, and it's one of the most successful auto manufacturers in history. Now, the reason I start with that story is because what happened to Henry Ford that day is something very similar to what happened to me a few years ago. He changed his mindset. Now, about 4.5 years ago, I was 27 years old, and I was working a job selling websites. I was right here in Salt Lake County. I was going business to business, talking to small business owners, trying to sell them a website that the guys back at the shop I worked at would build for them. And, 40 grand a year, that's the average American, right? I was 27, living in a 2-bedroom apartment. I should have been happy, but I wasn't. And the reason is because earlier on in my life, when I was 20, 21, I said to myself, you know what? When I'm 30, I want to be a millionaire. By the time I'm 35, I'm going to make $1 million in a calendar year. And here I was, 27 years old, much closer chronologically to the goal than I was financially, right? And I was having a hard time with that. So I got kind of nervous, and I started looking around my industry, looked at the top sales guy in my industry. He was making $150,000. Now, that's good money, right? But the problem was, if that's where I set my ceiling, I'd never hit my goal. So I thought, well, maybe it's not in sales. Maybe it's in management. Looked at my manager. He was making $250,000 a year. It's great. I don't care what industry you're in. That's good money, right? $250 a year, that's a really good job. But if that's where I set my ceiling, I still would never hit my goal. So what I decided to do was I decided to look at people who had actually done it. So I bought every book I could find, every biography that I could find on wealthy individuals. I watched TED Talks. I wanted to get inside of these guys' heads. I want to know what time they woke up in the morning, what they ate for breakfast, and what their agenda looked like, what they do during the day, right? I wanted to copy every step of what they did so that I could be one of those too. And so I bought like 7 composition notebooks from Target, just the lined paper, right? And I just filled those things full of notes. I ran out of room. I started writing on napkins and, the back of like credit card statements and all that stuff. And I had so many notes that I had to organize them. So I organized them into a paper. And then my paper eventually became a book. And my book, I published about 2.5 years ago. It's called Mindset to Millionaire. It's actually a bestseller on Amazon. Now, the reason I bring up the book is because I set up a dichotomy in the book between what I call the employee mindset and the wealthy mindset. And really, that's what it boiled down to. As I went through my notes again and tried to figure out what it was that they were doing different, it's just mindset. It's the way they think. So the first thing I discovered was that the employee mindset individual thinks in 2 currencies. Those currencies are money and time. And you know what? The employee mindset individual values money way more than they value time. Now, I want you to try an experiment. If you have a job, go back into your boss next time you go to work, maybe tomorrow. And if, let's say you make $20 an hour, pull a 20 out of your pocket and slap it on his desk. Say, That's what you paid me for one of my hours. I just want to buy 1 hour back. He's going to look at you like, are you kidding? Like, like it's a joke. Okay, I see what this is. Here's another 20. That's $40. That's double what you paid me for it. I just want 1 hour back. Now he's going to look at you like you're kind of crazy, right? Okay, fine. Here's $100. No, $200. That's 10 times what you paid me for it. I just want one of them back. What can you do? There's nothing he can do. You see, time is the only non-renewable resource we have. In fact, it's the most scarce currency we have. And yet we were taught to trade it for the most abundant currency in the world, money. We're all wearing name tags today. If we wrote down on our name tags, down to the penny, what we made in 2017, every one of us would be different in this room. Every one of us. We all provide a different value. We all do different things. But you know, if we wrote down how much time we had in a day, it would be the same for every single one of us. And you know what? If we had these people up on the screen earlier participate in that activity, it'd be 24 hours for them as well. So what I learned is that the wealthy, they think in 5 currencies. Those currencies have a very particular order to them. The most important is time. Then comes knowledge, relationships, credit, and money. You'll notice that money's last. It's the wealthy that own the jobs. And they're just shoveling the money over to the employee mindset, saying, sell us your time. You guys take the money. We'll make more of it. You guys sell us your time. Right? Maybe there's something to that. Now, I also noticed that as you get those 5 currencies in that particular order in your life, you'll have an abundance of all of them. Another thing I learned was that the wealthy and the employee mindsets, they have different ideas about how to save for emergencies and about how to save for retirement. You see, the employee mindset individual has what we call an accumulation strategy. They build nests, right? And every month they'll take and they'll put an egg in a nest. Let's talk about retirement, okay? They have their retirement account and they'll put an egg in the nest every month. And as you work, over years and decades, you build that nest pretty tall. You got a lot of eggs in that nest. You're feeling pretty good when it comes about 65 and it's time to retire, right? So you start, at retirement, you start taking eggs out of the nest. And you'll use one and crack it. Next month, you take one out. And it's doing pretty good, right? You still got a pretty good. But as you start to reach about 90, what happens? Yeah. You look at it and you start thinking, holy crap, well, hopefully I die before I run out of money, right? That's a terrible retirement plan. Hopefully I die before I run out of money. And that's, all of us probably are scared of that. You end up, working at the age of 90, 95 so that because your retirement ran out. Well, the wealthy have a different strategy. What the wealthy do is they just buy chickens. Because a chicken will lay an egg every month, whether you're sick or if you decide to go on an extended vacation, you could be dead and a chicken will still lay an egg. It doesn't matter, right? Now, of course, I'm not talking about chickens. What am I talking about? Assets, cash flowing assets, right? Rental properties. We're all here for real estate. Rental properties in this case. A well-managed rental will pay you even if you're sick for more than 2 weeks. A well-managed rental will pay you even if you decide to go on vacation for a year. Heck, it'll pay you even if you're dead. And it's a legacy that you can pass on to your children and on to their children. It will never run out with time. You can retire as early as you want and it will keep going. Okay? The other thing I found was that the wealthy are business owners and real estate investors, almost to a person. And when I first discovered this, I thought, well, sure that's the case because those activities make a lot of money, right? Well, that's true, but what I found was there's layers to it. One of those layers is taxes. We've all heard that the wealthy pay less in taxes, yes? Do you know that most of them do it legally, morally, and ethically? It's because they understand the tax law. You see that second currency, knowledge, that's an important thing to the wealthy. If they're going to pay into the tax system, they want to understand it. And what happens when they start to understand it is they find that being a business owner and a real estate investor carry with it more deductions than any other activity. There's nothing else you can do that has more deductions, tax deductions to it, than being a business owner and a real estate investor. Whereas the employee mindset individual, they'll trade their most valuable resource, time, for money, and then they're scared of, we're taught to be scared of finances, right? We don't want to talk about finances. We don't want to ask any questions. We just kind of do what we see everybody else doing. So when they get their money, well, I'm supposed to pay taxes, right? How do I do that? Oh, well, here's a W-2 form. Just sign that. W-2 is the most expensive way to pay your taxes. There's not another more expensive way to pay your taxes than the W-2 form. It's also the only way whereby the government gets paid first. You know that withholdings that they do? That's the government getting their money first before you get your check. And the wealthy, they don't deal with that. All the 1099s and K-1s and all the other forms that the wealthy use that we're scared of, that's how they get paid first, and that's how they pay less, legally, morally, and ethically. Now, we can talk about taxes all day long, but I think we're here to talk about real estate, yes? Yeah. Okay, well, let's talk about some real estate. Listen, I got a chance to talk to some of you as you were coming in, and I realized we're kind of all on a different level, with real estate investing. Some of you have actually done some flips and have some rentals. Others just have heard that real estate investing makes a lot of money, and you're right. And you're just kind of here to check it out. So what I want to do is let's define some terms. Now, you'll find throughout the workshop tonight that I love using analogies. And so we're going to use some analogies here. And I thought, what better thing, because we're all humans. I think we're all humans, yeah? Good. Looks like we're all humans. All right. No, just kidding. I'm going to use some relationship analogies, okay? I'll do the first one, then I'm going to have you guys help me with the others. So this is buy and hold property. This is a pretty basic idea. This is where you buy some real estate with the plan on holding it for a long period of time. Now, the analogy that I use for this, marriage, right? So if a buy and hold's marriage, you guys tell me, what's a foreclosure? You nailed it. Yep, that's right. Okay, subject to. This is actually one of my favorite strategies to pick up rental properties. This is where you get to use other people's mortgages. Do you know you could do that? You could use other people's mortgages to buy rental properties. In fact, I like using the previous owner's mortgage. It's my favorite way. Now, it does require that I sit down with that person and we kind of define the terms of the relationship before I enter into that long-term relationship with their property. What do you think that is? Prenup. Nailed it. Okay. Lease option. This is where you try it before you buy it, right? We're going to rent the property for a little while, and if we like it, we'll go ahead and, seal the deal and buy it.
Living together.
Living together. You got it. Okay. No money, no credit. Friends with benefits. All right. Auction. This is where you buy a property sight unseen. What do you think?
Blind date.
Blind date. You got it. All right. Here's one. Anybody graduate from high school in Utah? Okay, so you people are going to know what I'm talking about. Anybody graduate high school out of state? All right. So I graduated from Alta High School, Sandy, Utah, right here, in 2004. And as I got friends from out of state, I realized we do some really weird things as Utahns in high school. You can't just ask a girl to a date or to a dance, right? You can't just ask a girl to prom. You have to take a goat and tie it to her mailbox, and somehow that means will you go to prom with me? So I thought, well, the best creative acquisition is, Utah prom night. Now, stay in the Utah mindset. Moving on. All right, fix and flip. This is my favorite strategy, guys. I do 5 fix and flips at a time. I love this strategy. It's kind of a down and dirty, get in, get out type of thing. I thought the best analogy, hit it and quit it. Now, I'm doing 5 of these at a time. The fix and flips, not the... and I want to share one of the properties that I recently finished in 2017. We sold it. I like it because it has really good numbers. Quick disclaimer, this may not be typical to your results. Every real estate property is unique. Every real estate property is going to have built into it a different profit amount, so you can't expect to have the same results that me or any of our other students have. But let's go ahead and break it down. So this property is 2677 West Jordan Meadows Lane in the far-off mystical land of West Jordan, Utah. Right? None of us have ever heard of that place before. Now, we're doing properties right here in Salt Lake County. Okay? And the reason I share the address with you is so you can check my work. You can go to the county recorder and you can look at what I bought it for, when I bought it, and what I sold it for, and when I sold it. So you can see that the numbers that I'm sharing with you are accurate. Okay, so we bought this property, and I did round these numbers to the nearest 5,000, just to make the math really easy so we could all do it together. We bought the property for $250,000. We put about $50,000 into fixing this thing up. Now, our holding costs were $10,000. Who wants to take a guess at what holding costs are? What does that mean, holding costs? Utilities, insurance, interest. I told you I never use my own money when I do fix and flips. I always use other people's money. Now, If that's the case, there's only two things I could be doing, right? I'm either borrowing it or I'm stealing it. Which do you think it is? I heard both, actually. Yeah, that's what this meeting is. We're going to turn off the lights in a second, take all your wallets, and then go buy some real estate. No, we borrow it. We borrow it. Now, we don't borrow from banks because banks want they want to know what your credit score is, and they want to know what your, great-grandmother's birthday is. And they got like this list as long as your arm of things that they need from you, and then it takes 60 to 90 days to fund a property. So we don't mess with that. We find private parties that have money. Sometimes we get a bunch of them together, and we can go fund a deal in 24 hours, right? And they don't ask your credit score, and they don't ask for W-2 income, and they don't ask for proof of employment, and none of that stuff, right? They just want to see the deal. So, yeah, we borrow the money, we pay an interest so that it's a win-win. Our closing costs were $25,000. That includes some marketing costs. All in this property, we were $335,000, and our after-repair value, or we use the acronym ARV, was $380,000. That's what we sold this property for. So we do these properties usually in about 120 days, and in this particular one, we made $45,000. Now, who thinks that $45,000 in 4 months is a lot of money and would like to learn how to do that? Yeah, me too. I love it. Okay, well, let's jump in. We're going to talk about it. I'm going to share it all with you today. Is that cool? Okay. Well, listen, what I do is pretty sexy. And I think it's because of the TV shows, right? But I love it. Thank you. I appreciate it. But I have a problem with the TV shows. I think that they make you think that any guy with a hot wife can flip a house and make 90 grand. And there's just a little bit more to it than that. There's some strategy that goes into it. You're my favorite person. Seriously, I love you. And, I drive a pretty nice car, and I've got some advertising on my car that says, we'll buy properties, do fix and flip, blah, blah, blah. And so I get hit up all the time in parking lots and in shopping malls and grocery stores. And people, it's a hot thing right now, fix and flips and whatnot. They want to come talk to me. They want to talk about fix and flips, right? But the weirdest thing, I would think that if you meet an expert at something that you want to do, that you'd have a lot of questions. I rarely get questions. I usually get stories about how they think it's supposed to be done. And I've talked to enough people now that I've kind of invented 3 different categories in my head of different types of investors that there are. So I'm going to share those with you today. I'm going to show you 2 ways not to do a fix and flip. And then I'm going to show you the way that we did it. Is that all right? Okay. So the first type of person, and probably the most common type of person, in fact, maybe some of you came into the room tonight with this idea about how to do fix and flips. And if you do, don't be offended. Just learn from it, okay? But we call this guy the move-in guy. This is the guy that thinks, he looks at it and he says, wow, you got a really good property here, made a lot of profit, but you know what? I could have made you more. You spent a lot of money on that rehab. I would have just moved into it and worked on it in my spare time. And I don't like that strategy for a couple of reasons that I'm going to share with you. First reason is, another experiment. Go home to your significant other tonight and say, babe, I got a new business model. We're going to move into one of these, and we're going to work on it while we live there. We're going to live there about 4 months, and just as it's getting pretty, we're going to sell it, and we're going to move into another one of these. What do you think? What do you think they're going to say? Yeah, right. But babe, I know how you love the open floor plan. Look at this thing. I don't care if you're single. The idea of moving every 4 months, that may happen once or twice. But by the time you get to 3, 4, 5 properties, the 4 months is going to turn into 6 months, and it's going to turn into 9 months and 12 months, right? We all thought making 45 grand in 4 months was pretty cool. Who thinks that 45 grand in 12 months is a lot of money for a construction job where you live at the construction site? You can't go home because that is home. That kind of sucks, right? So I don't really like that idea. The biggest reason I don't like the move-in guy is because I do 5 at a time. If my strategy is to move into each one of them and work on them myself, what am I limited to? 1. I'll tell you something. You will never be a millionaire by doing 1 fix and flip. You will never be a millionaire by doing 1 fix and flip at a time. You need to understand how to scale your business, and that's what we're here to talk about today. Okay, so I don't like the move-in guy. Now, let's talk about the type 2 investor. Who's heard that real estate investing is risky? I hear it all the time. Oh, you're a real estate investor? Isn't that like super risky? Well, it can be. And you know what? It's this type 2 guy that gives us the bad name. I call him the debt guy. This is the guy that's read like 1.5 Robert Kiyosaki books, and he just has his toe dipped into the wealthy mindset, right? He may understand some terms like other people's money and other people's time, but he hasn't gone very far with his knowledge and with his learning. I mean, look, he might understand even how we structure the money. He knows that we only need to raise enough money to buy the house and fix it. These other fees, they're not due till the back end. So we only need to raise $300,000 to do this property, okay? So what he does is he opens his Google machine and clickety-clack, Utah fix and flip money, and up pops a list of hard money lenders. Who's worked with hard money lenders before? All right, so tell me, what kind of terms do they give you?
They'll foreclose not done in 6 months,
Okay.
and they will ask for 12 to 18% interest and 3 to 4 points.
Yeah, dang, that's pretty close to what I found in doing my research. So I found about 12% interest, which is about 3 times what a normal home loan would cost you, right? And then if you're not done with it, like she said, if you're not done with it within the time frame that they give you, then they'll just come take the house, right? Anybody think that these are super nice guys? They're just like, just pay me when you get the money, we're good. No, these guys are sharks. They'll come, they'll foreclose on the property if you go to 6 months and 1 day. That's part of their business model. This is how they pick up fix and flips at an even cheaper discount than what you got them for, right? So, the problem is, and you're looking at this and you're thinking, well, you just said we could do it in 4 months, so what's the problem if we have 6 months to give the money back? Well, that's the mentality of the debt guy. He gets into the property, and maybe the first one, everything's on time and everything's on budget, and he gets his money out and gets into the next one, and everything's on time and on budget, right? 4 months in and out, then he gets into the next one. You think that every deal you're ever going to do is going to be on time and on budget? Yeah, the first step to becoming an educated investor is realizing that you don't have control over everything. Look at 2008. How many investors lost money in 2008? Why do you think that is? I'll tell you why. One exit strategy. When you have one exit strategy, when you go into a fix and flip saying, we're going to buy this low and we're going to sell it high and that's it. And then the economy does something you didn't expect, you're stuck. This property, 2677 West, Jordan Meadows Lane, in 2007, if you go to the county tax recorder and you look up the tax assessment for this property, it was worth $380 in 2007. It took 10 years for the property to come back to what it was worth so we could sell it for $380 in 2017. Fast forward from 2007 to 2011, this property was worth $280,000. It took a $100,000 haircut. So what happens if you're the debt guy and you're holding this property when that happens again? Because will 2008 happen again? Yeah. Does anybody know when? If you do know, I need like a day and a time because we turn these things pretty fast. So that would be very helpful. Look, I don't know when it's going to happen again. Christian Sadler's been doing this for 3 times longer than me. Do you know when it's going to happen, Christian? Nope. We don't know. So we have to treat every deal as if it's going to happen again while we're holding the deal, right? So let's just run a scenario here. Let's say you get into this property, you have one exit strategy, you structure it all as debt, and you think you're going to sell it for $380, and then the bottom falls out before you can finish it, and the market says, well, you can only sell this for $280 now. You can't sell it because you're $20,000 upside down, and if you count the fees that you owe when you do sell it, you're $55,000 upside down. That means you have to write a $55,000 check when you go to close. I don't think any of us are getting into this because we want to write checks when we sell properties, right? We want to get the checks when we sell the properties. So that's not an option. We got some pretty creative minds in here. Let's think about some exit strategy. What can we do? What could this guy do? Rent it out. We can throw some tenants in there, right? We finish it in 4 months, put some tenants in there. They're really good tenants. They pay their rent on time. So we, 1 month into it, or at month 5, we get a check for rent. Month 6, we get a check for rent. What happens the next day? Yeah, the hard money lender calls and says, man, I just drove by that property you were doing. Beautiful. You did a great job on it. And you put some cash flowing tenants in there for me. Thank you so much. It's mine now. Right? So that's not an option. What else could we do? We can refinance it. Yeah, take it down to the bank and say, Mr. Banker, here's my collateral. It's worth $280,000. Can I borrow $300, please? What do you think he's going to say? No. Nope. You're under collateralized. See, here's my problem with the debt guy. Anything happens at all, and he ruins his credit, he ruins his reputation, and he ruins his relationships. One deal sinks this guy. That's too risky for me. I actually have a really low risk tolerance. I would not be a real estate investor if this is how we had to do it. So I don't want to work with the debt guy. Now, the third type of investor, this is the educated investor. This is how we structured the property. This is where you might want to take notes because I'm going to give you the whole thing. Okay? We did what's called a debt equity blend on this property, and there's a secret ratio to debt equity blend. It's 2/3 debt, whatever you need to raise, and in this case it's $300,000. So 2/3 debt, 1/3 equity. That means we need to raise $200,000 in debt, and you know what? Just for fun, we'll even use the 12% 6-month guy. The same guy that the debt guy used, except we're doing 200 instead of 300,000 this time. So now we need to find an equity partner. Okay? We need to raise another 100,000, and we're going to do that in equity. That means we need to go find a partner. Well, remember when I said that real estate investing and business ownership were the two activities that the wealthy did? Sometimes those things dovetail pretty closely. What I did was I started an LLC, which is a company, right? And I put my deal in the LLC, and I gave myself half ownership of that LLC. Then I went out looking for a partner. I just started calling all my friends that I knew had $100,000 like buried in the couch cushions or out in the backyard. I was making $40,000 a year when I started doing this. All my friends made $40,000 a year. I didn't know anybody with money. But I learned something very important right here that changed my whole life. I learned there's $27 trillion in retirement accounts in this country. And there's only 400 million people that live here. So do some quick math. There's a lot of people with over $100,000 in their retirement account. There's probably a handful of you in the room. Now, 2 questions that set my career on a successful path. The first question, write these down. First question is, did you know that you could use your retirement account to buy real estate? Now, regardless of the answer that they give you, yes or no, the answer is yes, but whether they knew or not doesn't matter. The second question is the same. If I were to show you how you can make double or triple your current rate of return backed by real estate, would you lend with me on my next deal? So think about what I just said there. Double or triple your current rate of return. What are most 401ks and IRAs backed by right now? Stocks, mutual funds, right? And on average, what kind of rate of return can you expect on mutual funds? 6 or 7? Okay, let's use 7. So 7% annual rate of return on mutual funds. If I could double or triple that, you interested? Okay, yeah, I'm listening, right? Double or triple? Yeah, tell me. Oh, and we're going to back it by real estate. What's your mutual funds backed by? If the economy takes a dive, what do you get? Smaller retirement account, right? But if a deal goes bad with real estate and we've got the investment backed by real estate, you get a house. You can move into it, you can rent it out, you can sell it, whatever you want to do. So at this point, they're like, wait, it's safer and I'm going to make more? Okay, let's talk. Great. Here's my deal. We're going to make, if all goes well, we're going to make $45,000 at the end of this. That means if your 401k and me are partners, 50-50 partners, I'm going to make $22,500 and your 401k is going to make $22,500 as growth. Now let's run some quick math here. $100,000 that they put in, they got it back at the end of the deal plus another $22,500. What's their rate of return? 22.5%. Is that good? Yeah, that's pretty good. Try going down to the bank and asking for the money market account that makes 22.5%. They'll look at you like you're crazy, right? They'll be like, we got one that makes 0.225%. Is that the one you want? Why did I put this in the actual column? Huh? We did it in 4 months. When we're talking about a 7% return in mutual funds, how many months are we talking about? 12 months. If we annualize this, this is 67.5%. You think this guy's like, let's do this? Is he excited about it? Yeah. He's like, oh, where do I sign? Hey, wait a second. You told me about the debt guy that lost all of his money in 2008. What happens if we lose our money on this house? What happens? What happens if 2008 hits again while we're holding this thing? I said, I'm sure glad you asked. Let's run through a scenario real quick. Let's say 2008 hits again and this takes a $100,000 haircut. We can't sell it. But someone over here said, why don't you refinance it? Well, it wasn't possible because we had $300,000 worth of debt and only a $280,000 value on the house. How much debt do we have now? So what can we do? We can refinance it. We can take our $280,000 asset down to the bank, say, Mr. Banker, here's $280,000 worth of real estate. Can I borrow $200,000? What's he going to say?
Yep.
He's going to look at it and say, an $80,000 equity position on a $280,000 house? Heck yeah, you can have some money, right? So we refinance out the 12% 6-month guy, replace it with a 30-year mortgage. He's all paid back now. He's out of the picture. We got a 30-year mortgage that we're just making payments on now. Now what could we do? Rent it out. We put some tenants in there. Now think about this. We got a mortgage at $200,000 and a mortgage payment based on a $200,000 mortgage. And our house is worth $280,000. We can rent it out based on $280,000. We're going to have some cash flow? Yeah, so we're getting cash flow every month for as long as it takes. Let's say it takes 10 years again. We have to come back. We're going to get cash flow every month for 10 years. And you know what? This guy, the equity partner, do I just need to call him and say, oh, dude, sorry, I lost your money. My bad. No. He was a partner in a fix and flip before. Now he's a partner in a rental. So we're going to split that cash flow 50-50. He gets paid every single month while all of his buddies who left their money in their 401k indexed and mutual funds are losing. He gets cash flow every month until the property comes back to what it was worth. We sell it. He makes $22,500 and I make $22,500. Worst case scenario, he makes more money. So for all of us that said real estate investing felt risky before, does this seem a lot less risky now? Yeah. You know what's interesting is when knowledge increases, behavior changes, right? Now I want to talk about one of my favorite topics in the whole world. Me. Let's talk about me for a second. How much money did I put into this deal?
None.
0. And I got $22,500 in profit from it. What's my rate of return?
Infinite.
I feel like a third grader when I say this. I made infinity percent on this deal. And you know what? I make infinity percent on every deal. Why? What currency did I contribute to the deal? Knowledge. I contributed knowledge. They contributed money. I don't care how you look at it. Infinity's way higher number than 67.5%. Right? I make the highest rate of return in every deal because I contribute a more valuable currency than anybody else. I like that you guys are getting this, right? Brain matter all over the place, scrape it off the walls. We're good. We'll clean it up later. All right. Is this good stuff? Yeah. You guys learning stuff? Yeah. Should we wrap it up now, or do you want to hear more? More? Okay. All right. Well, listen, I want to bounce back to some of the stuff we were talking about earlier, some of the mindset stuff. Now, you remember how the wealthy, their most important currency is time? We sleeping? Yep. You guys remember that? Yeah. All right. So, wealthy's most important currency is time. That means they refuse to trade their time for money. And the most efficient way that they've found to protect their time are business systems. And you know what? As you make your trek from the employee mindset to the wealthy mindset, you'll use hundreds of business systems. Hundreds of them a day. And heck, we use business systems for fix and flips. Right? One of the disservices I think that the TV shows do is if the couple wants to go out and put granite in the house, they'll take a little field trip down to the granite factory and look at the different slabs and how they're polished and cut. And, they'll take the swatches home. And, my favorite's the carpet swatches, right? They look at each carpet. This one matches the trees outside. We should put this carpet in. It wastes so much time. It wastes so much money. We put the same crap in every house. It's the same stuff. Now, it's beautiful stuff. Don't get me wrong. We go to the Parade of Homes once a year, and we pick out all the stuff we're going to put in every house that we do for that whole year. And then it's the same stuff. We buy it all in bulk. I buy pallet by the time. I never thought my relationship with tile would be measured in pallets. But I just bought a pallet of tile. And it's because we're going to be putting it in 5 different houses. I get a discount on my tile. It's a lot less expensive when you buy it in a pallet than when you buy it in a box. Right? Now, it's the same stuff. And look, it saves me time, too, because I don't have to explain to my contractors what goes in the houses. They know. They know the paint color. They know the tile. They know down to the model of toilet that we put in every bathroom. They know. I don't have to explain it, right? So it saves us money. It saves us time. Systems. And we live in America. We have some of the greatest examples of business systems in the world. One of my favorites is McDonald's Corporation. Now, McDonald's is the number one holder of real estate in the world. There's nobody that owns more of this planet than McDonald's. Is that weird? It's the number one restaurant by revenue in the world. They feed 1% of the Earth's population a day. There's about 100 people in this room. That means one of you guys ate McDonald's today, and it wasn't me. Who was it? Why do we eat there? Because it's just the best hamburger I've ever had in my life, right? Is that why we eat there? Yeah, it's convenient, it's cheap, it's fast, whatever. We don't eat there because it's good. We eat there because it's convenient and it's cheap. Well, you know what? If you go anywhere in the entire world and walk into a McDonald's, you'll find that most of the employees are under the age of 20. It's the number one holder of real estate in the world, and it's run by teenagers. How is that possible? How is it possible? Systems. It's because of systems. You want to work at McDonald's? There's a handbook that's this thick that you have to read and understand and go, it's systems. It's all systems. You think that the CEO of McDonald's is down there flipping patties with the other guy, like sweeping the floor? I'll lock up, guys. You go home. I'll see you in the morning, right? That's not how it works. It's systems, okay? So you're going to be using hundreds of systems. It's going to be awesome because it's going to save you a ton of time. But you know what? There's 4 business systems that we use more than any other. In fact, we call them the 4 pillars of wealth. These 4 pillars of wealth are taxes, banking, business, and real estate. As you learn about these 4 business systems and start to apply them in your life, you can own anything you want. You want an apartment building? You can own an apartment building tomorrow. And a lot of people look at me like, wait a second, I got $100 in my checking account and my credit sucks. How am I supposed to buy an apartment building? Well, that's how we were taught how to buy stuff in our employee mindset. But in a wealthy mindset, when you understand how to use business systems, you can buy anything you want. It doesn't have to be assets either. It could be liabilities. You want a jet? You can buy a jet. Anybody ever have a dream car? You can buy a dream car. Yeah, I have a dream car. So I want to share, we talked a little bit about real estate, right? I want to share a couple other pillars real quick. We're going to talk about taxes and business. So this is just an example. I highly recommend, because I am not an accountant, I highly recommend that you guys talk to an accountant before you try to apply any of these strategies I'm going to share with you. But let's talk about the difference between a W-2 and a business owner, okay? Now we're going to set up a hypothetical example. Let's say that this W-2 employee makes $100,000 a year selling widgets. He works for Widget Manufacturing Incorporated as a W-2 employee. His job is to go out and pick up accounts and sell accounts widgets, and he makes $100,000 a year doing it, okay? Now, as a W-2, the first thing that gets taken out of your check is taxes. So it's about a third, right? A little less than a third gets taken out. $30,000 immediately goes to the government. Now, he's got a house and a cell phone and a car, and he's got kids, so he's got to pay for his kids' school and soccer practice and all that stuff. And his expenses are about $70,000 a year, okay? What's left over? Nada. Let's run the same scenario, but this time he's a business owner, okay? Business owners get to take advantage of more deductions than W-2 employees. W-2 employees have about 15 to 20 deductions they get to take. Business owners have 250. Real estate investors have about another 200. So a lot more deductions, right? So this guy's a business owner now. Now he decides, you know what? I don't want to work for Widget Manufacturing Incorporated. I want them to be a vendor of mine. I'm going to start my own company, and my company's responsibility is to sell widgets, and we'll contract with Widget Manufacturing Incorporated to fulfill the orders that come through, and then they'll just pay me. He's got the same clientele. He makes the same profit margin, commission, whatever. He makes $100,000 a year. He brings in $100,000 a year from being a business owner selling widgets, doing the same thing, okay? Well, as a business owner, your taxes don't get taken out first. You get to take deductible expenses first. Do you think if you're a business owner, you might use your cell phone a little bit for business? Yeah. Deduction. You think you might do a little bit of work out of your home, right? Home office? Deduction. All right, you're going to use your car a little bit for work? You're going to drive around and see your customers? Yeah, deduction. You know what? There's actually a law that a lot of people don't know about, a tax law. You can hire your kids under the age of 18 and you can pay them up to $12,000 a year each, tax-free. So instead of, giving your kids allowance and then also paying for their school supplies and their soccer practice and their clothes, pay them $12,000 a year, tax-free, to work in your business. And then have them buy with their tax-free money their clothes and their school supplies and pay for their field trips and their soccer practice. Does that make sense? So now your expenses are about $70,000. And you know what's cool is for business owners, they take, the IRS looks at this and they say, okay, so you brought in $100,000, but you had $70,000 of deductible expenses. That makes your adjusted gross income $30,000. So that's what we're going to tax you on. So they take about a third of that. Taxes are $10,000. What's left over? $20,000. Made the same amount of money, doing the same thing, spent the same amount of money on the same stuff. We just structured it different. Followed the law. And we were left over with $20,000 more than we had before. Now, some of you might be looking at this saying, well, geez, I don't make $100,000. I'd make like half that. Well, that's okay. Cut that in half. Anybody want an extra $10,000 this year? Right? All it is knowledge. All you have to do is have an understanding of how it works. That's it. Pretty cool stuff. Okay, should we stop here or keep going? All right, let's keep going. I want to talk to you guys about why you're here. We are Renatus. We are a local group of elite real estate investors. We're educated investors, and we share everything. We share capital, money partners. We share contractors and relationships. We share training and education. And you know what? What I'm doing right now, this is my business. I told you I'm a business owner. This is my business. I fly around the country doing exactly this in different states for different groups of real estate investors. I do a lot of trainings, a lot of stuff from just basic like today all the way to in-depth stuff. And I have seen groups that try to do something similar to what Renatus does, and they charge outrageous amounts of money. $100,000 to be a part of their group, $75,000. Sometimes there's annual fees of $50,000 or $40,000, right? We don't do any of that stuff. In fact, we only have one bar for entry, and that's knowledge. You just need to be an educated investor. Mostly because I don't want to work with the debt guy or the move-in guy, right? If we're going to go out and do deals together, I want to know that you're not going to over-leverage our property so that we don't have other exit strategies if something were to happen. I also want to know that you're not going to extend the timeline because you decided to move your family into it, right? I want to work with educated investors, and I want to be confident in knowing that, and so does the rest of the community. So your requirement is that you need to be educated. Now, what does that look like? We have a vault of over 400 hours of online trainings taught by real estate millionaires from around the country. We fly these folks in, and they re-record their classes and record new classes on a regular basis. I'll tell you, I've been a part of this group for about 4.5 years. I've seen 5 iterations of the tax class. In fact, we just underwent one of the largest tax reforms in the last 50 years, right? Well, we brought Mark Kohler back in, and he re-recorded the tax class. And the reason is because just because I'm out doing this stuff doesn't mean that the new laws are automatically downloaded into my brain. Knowledge is an ongoing process. I continually have to update my education and my knowledge because what I was doing in 2017, because of these law changes, means that if I do the same thing in 2018, I might be doing something illegal. And I don't want to do anything illegal. So, first rule of thumb, if you bought books and tapes in the 80s, don't use them because you probably will get in trouble if you do, okay? This stuff needs to be updated on a regular basis. Now let's talk about education. We've talked a lot about wealth building strategies. We've touched lightly on wealth keeping strategies. Why is it important to keep your wealth? Well, if you build wealth and then it just all goes out the window, you're still poor, right? You're just broke on a higher level. It's important to build a big fence around your fat cows. You got to protect your assets as you build them, right? One example. How many lottery winners do you know of that are still wealthy like 5 years after they win the lottery? Not very many, right? First reason is because wealthy mindset individuals just simply don't buy lottery tickets. They have better things to do with their money, right? So it's usually employee mindset or poor individuals that buy lottery tickets because that's their plan to get rich, right? And so it's inevitably a poor person that usually wins the lottery. And they don't know, they don't understand things like structure. They don't know you should go out and buy an apartment building if you come into a lot of money, And so what happens is the lottery comes out and says, hey, congratulations, you won the lottery. It's $180 million. Who should we write the check to? Well, I won, right? Write it to me. Write it to Mitch. Okay, Mitch, $180 million. Here you go. Now, if I were to kind of reduce all of the tax strategies that we talk about, or really any tax strategy, I can reduce it down to one thought. And that is, if you take money in your personal name, it's called income. And income is taxable. This is why we have businesses and entities set up. Well, I got businesses that run my construction company. I got businesses that hold my fix and flip assets. I've got businesses that do my advertising, right? I've got all sorts of entities structured up, and the money comes in to these entities, and I try to spend it out of the entities before it trickles down to me. Because when it hits me, it's income, and it's taxable, right? So if I get a $180 million check, guess what? Uncle Sam's there, he wants his half. And guess what? If you do a fix and flip in your personal name, you make 45 grand, Uncle Sam's going to be there wanting his half, right? We call him the unexpected partner. Now look, flying real estate millionaires in from around the country is not cheap. So there is a tuition that goes along with this. And that tuition is $20,000. Now, who came totally ready to drop 20 grand a day? They brought their fat stacks of cash. You ready to make it rain? You? No cash tonight? Seriously?
Credit card?
I'll take a debit card. Just need a PIN number. No? Seriously? Oh, man. Personal checks. Just write it to Mitch. Just kidding, don't. I don't want to pay the taxes. You know why? Because you're looking at it and you're thinking, holy cow, I'm the average American. I make like 50 grand a year. This guy wants half. I'd be a hypocrite if that's what I wanted. You keep the job money. I don't want it, right? Couldn't we use this? Couldn't we use one of these 4 pillars or all of the 4 pillars to make it worth it? I mean, how many fix and flips like the one I did in West Jordan would you have to do to make this worth it? One. Then the rest is cream. Renatus doesn't have their hand in your pocket. They don't get a chunk of each of your deals. They're yours. You pay the tuition once, you get it for life. All the updates, any new classes that Renatus releases, yours. So, I saved. I'm missing it. I'm missing a slide. I saved a pillar for last, the banking pillar, and I did it on purpose. I have time to share one last strategy with you guys. And so I'm going to share one strategy out of the banking pillar. We call it velocity banking strategy. You guys okay with that if I share one more strategy tonight? Yeah. This one's the best one. That's why I saved it for last. Okay? 2 points I want to make. First point, as I share this strategy, is I'm going to show you how the average American, with the average American income, with the average American amount of debt, can pay off all their debt and pick up 10 rental properties in a decade without ever getting a raise and without ever changing their lifestyle. All they do is change their mindset about how they bank. Point number 2 is the education that I just talked about becomes effectively free. Everybody okay with free? Yeah. Thought we'd be okay with free. Let's dive in. Okay, average American household, that's 2 incomes, makes about 60 grand a year. That's 5 grand a month. So when we get our money from our job, where do we put it? Into the bank. What account do we put it in? Checking and savings, right? Why?
Because they told us to.
Because where else would we put it? That's what we were told to do. So we didn't ask any questions. That's just what we did, right? And you know what? I don't like the checking and savings account, mostly because that's where the bank wants you to put it. If you understand anything about the banking laws, you'll know that the deposit accounts, which are checking and savings, it's fancy talk for checking and savings. The deposit accounts is where the banks can take the money that's deposited and extend loans and invest in markets so that the bank can make more money. So when you put your money in the checking account, they take it and they go invest it, make the bank money, and then give it back to you when you ask for it. So they're using you like a line of credit. And putting your money in a checking account keeps you on a cash basis. When you're on a cash basis, you have to slice up the pie in your head sometimes before the check even gets there. Like, I got a house payment that's coming due. I got to slice that pie. No one can eat that piece of pie because that's for the bank, right? I got a car payment that's coming. I got credit cards I got to pay. Right? You're slicing up the pie. And the problem that I have with that, well, let me pause here for a second. I want to make a point. Everything you know about banking comes from the bank. Everything you think you know about banking comes from the bank. And I've had people stop me there and say, hey, wait a second. You're talking about credit cards right now. I hate credit cards. I've always hated credit cards. My mom and my grandma told me credit cards are the worst. Well, guess what? There's a psychology about how the bank wants you to think about their products, including credit cards. Let's use an example. Let's say we got a credit card over there on the left-hand side. Let's say that that's your Best Buy card. Okay? It's a $15,000 limit on your Best Buy card, and it's the day before the Super Bowl. So we're going to go down to Best Buy, and we're going to pick out the 80-inch TV with the sound system and the popcorn maker and the microwave, and we take all that stuff up to the front, and it comes to $12,000 even. So we swipe our Best Buy card. There's now a $12,000 balance on our $15,000 card. And we go home, we set it up, we watch the game, Eagles win, yay, boo, whatever. And then the next day, we pay off the card. How much does the bank make? Nothing. Next to nothing. They make barely anything. You had a balance on there for 2 days. It's pennies. Is that how they want? Is that what they want from you? Pennies? Nope. So what they do is with one hand they say, hey, don't use credit cards. They're scary. They'll hurt you. And then with the other hand, they're sending us offers, right? Hey, sign up for this one. It's 0%. And some of us sign up for the 0% credit card, yes? And others say, nah, well, mom told me no, right? Mom said credit cards are bad, so I'm just going to rip it up and throw it away. And then they send you the vacation rewards one, right? Anybody like to travel? Yeah, okay. All right. So some of you sign up for it, right? If you use this card every day for 30 years, you might be able to go to Hawaii one way. I might want to go to Hawaii one way, so I'm going to sign up for this card, right? They got some of us. But the rest of us are like, no, I hate credit cards, blah, blah, right? Anybody in here, is there anybody in here that's never signed up for a credit card? Raise your hand. 2 people, 3 people, 4 people. Okay, 4 people out of like 80. I'm guilty. I signed up for a lot. So, because they send us that crazy marketing, right? They send you the one with the Little Mermaid on it, right? Yeah. Nelson, they saw you coming, man. They send you the one that they knew would get you. That was the one. The cute kitty card. It was the mermaid. It was the mermaid one? I want to see it. No, he's like, I'll show you. I got the Little Mermaid card right here. No. So they send you the Little Mermaid card, right? And you're like, holy crap, the Little Mermaid card, I'm signing up for this thing. And so he fills it out, he sends it in, checks the mailbox every day for 10 days, finally shows up, rips it out of the envelope, peels off the card, magnetic stripe across the back. Oh, dang it, they got me. Oh, I signed up for a credit card, right? Well, just what the wife doesn't know won't hurt her, so we'll put that in the safe, out of sight, out of mind, right? Just forget about it. Life goes on. Life happens as it does. And, I think we've all been to a point at some point in our lives where there's more month than money left. You know, you got a week before the paycheck's coming in and the checking account's at 0. And the fear sets in. And you get the cold sweats and the tingles down the spine. You're thinking, what are we going to do? We got bills to pay. We got mouths to feed. The creditors are already calling, asking for money. We'll just go to Canada. They'll never find us there. Sell one of the kids. That'll get us by for a week. Wait a second. We got the Little Mermaid card in the safe. Good thing I signed up for the Little Mermaid card because we're desperate right now, right? Swipe for a little gas because we're desperate. Swipe for a little grocery because we're desperate, right? Wife's not looking, so we buy the big TV because we're desperate. Right? And before you know it, you've got $12,000 racked up on the Little Mermaid card because you were desperate. And when you're desperate, can you afford to pay it off the next day? No. You stretch that sucker out as far as it'll go, and you make the minimum payments every month for 7 years. There's a certain way they want you to think about their products. Get it? So what they tell you is pay the minimums on everything and then budget for your lifestyle. And with what's left over, we'll put that into savings. And you're looking at this thinking, who the heck saves $1,400 a month? Well, you do. Anybody work for corporate America? Get the match plan on their 401k? Problem with the 401ks is accumulation strategy. So it's just putting eggs in a nest, right? And they'll match it. So every egg you put in, they'll put a 6/100ths of an egg. Get it? So you might, instead of being this by the time you retire, you might be this. Right? It's a big difference. And then, we might have the stock options that just come out of our check, right? That's just another nest. And then everybody has to put a little bit of money into savings because what happens if there's an emergency, right? I don't like savings accounts for the reasons that I mentioned. Also, it's just a pile of money that's just sitting there, right? And the strategy is, I'm going to hide behind this pile of money. If something scary happens, I can just, maybe throw some money at it, see if it goes away. But most days, would you agree with me, most days are not rainy days, yes? So when it's not a rainy day, it's just a pile of money sitting there, doing nothing. So I don't like that strategy. I don't like this strategy because what that does is it makes you paycheck to paycheck. And it doesn't matter what level you're at. You could be making $60,000 a year or $600,000 a year. If this is your strategy of how you do things, you're just broke on a higher level because the cash flow is zero. Now, I'm looking at a lot of models, right? I'm looking at rent models. I'm looking at flip models, Victoria's Secret models. Just kidding. Let's talk about rent models for a second. So if this were a rental, and let me be clear, average gross rents across the United States, meaning average what you get paid for rent is about $1,000, right? If you have a $5,000 coming in on a rental every month, is that one you get super excited about? You just buy it because, hey, they paid me $5,000. Is that what you're looking at? We're looking at cash flow. If it cash flows zero, is that a rental you want? No, it doesn't matter whether it makes $1,000, $5,000, or $10 million a week. If the cash flow is zero, I don't want it. Make sense? All right, let's talk about some of the other stuff on this screen. I need to pick on somebody. Who's here for the very first time that never seen any of this stuff before? Is it Texas?
Yes, sir.
Texas, my favorite person in the audience?
Yeah.
Just kidding. Just kidding. I love you all equally. Okay. I appreciate you volunteering. You owe me some money now.
All right.
Are you glad you... No, listen. You came in. We're buddies from long ago. You said, hey, man, I need to borrow some money. I said, no problem. I'll lend you the money. But we're going to do this right. We're going to put a promissory note in place, and you're going to pay me some interest. You said, cool. That's fine. I'll pay you interest. I just need to borrow the money. So I gave it to you. And I'm a nice guy. Just ask me. I'll tell you all about it. I'm going to let you pick your interest rate. Okay? Now, we got a couple of interest rates on the screen here. We got some 6% over there on that side. We got a 21% on this side. I'm going to let you pick any one of those interest rates, but it has to be one that's on the screen right now. Which one are you going to pick? 6%. Good answer. Does this feel like a trick question? A little bit? Okay. Well, it is. I'm using an example to make my point. Okay? If I told you that 32 degrees was the freezing point of fresh water at sea level, is that a true statement?
Yes.
I heard yes, no, depends. Celsius. Oh, wait, can I change my answer? I left something very important off. I left the scale off, and I tried to distract you with all that crap there on the bottom. Freezing point of fresh water, sea level, right? Guess what? It's called marketing. It's a distraction from what I'm actually doing, right? Now, this is a true statement. 32 degrees Fahrenheit, 0 degrees Celsius is the freezing point of freshwater at sea level. That is a true statement. What happens if I do this? Which one's hotter?
The one.
Wait, one's hotter than 32? How could one be hotter than 32? It's a lower number. Oh, it's a different scale. It's a different system, of course. Well, guess what? That's what the bank's doing to us. See it? They don't tell you what scale those are on. Okay? Here's what I mean. Anything called a loan, by definition, is amortized simple interest and one directional. That means you pay it and that's it. Right? That's it. Anything called a line, by definition, is daily simple interest and revolving. What does revolving mean? Well, a credit card is an example of a line of credit. And if you have a maxed out credit card and you make a payment, it's going to open up a little bit of room on that credit card, right? That's called leverage. We call that leverage. You can take that leverage in the form of your little piece of plastic down to the gas station, and you can swipe it and you can put some gas in your car, yes? Yeah, that's normal. When was the last time you ever swiped your mortgage to buy gas? When's the last time you swiped your car loan to buy gas? Or your student loan? You can't, because it's a loan. It's one directional. You pay it and that's it. What about amortization? Let's look at this amortization thing for a sec. So we've used the average Salt Lake County house as an example. $200,000, average payment's about $1,200, okay? You buy this house, you move in, you make your first payment of $1,200. A couple days later, they send you the statement. You look at the statement and it says, thank you for your $1,200 contribution to your mortgage. We allocated it like this. $250 went to principal, $950 went to interest. And you look at it and you say, wait a second. I thought we had a 6% mortgage. That doesn't sound right. And you call them, right? You get all mad about blah, blah, blah. They say, wait a second. Wait. If you turn to page 47 in your statement, you'll see that the amortization table crisscrosses about halfway through. And actually, by your last payment, well, it's the inverse. You'll pay $1,200 and $950 of it will go to principal and $250 of it will go to interest. And you say, oh, whew, I thought you were ripping me off for a second, right? Now, here's what I don't like about that. How many people do you know that actually make it to the last payment on a single mortgage? Most people don't. In fact, the average American refinances every 7 years or gets into a new loan. That puts you back at the beginning of the amortization schedule, which means you're paying mostly interest to the bank. And you know what? If you get to about 5 to 7 years, they'll start calling you. Anybody get those calls from the bank? Hey, we can lower your payment if you refinance. We can lower your interest if you refinance. You can pull some money out if you refinance. Please, 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 refinance, please. Right? Because they want to keep you paying mostly interest. That makes sense to everybody? Okay. Let's take a look at it from wait a second. Let's get the part. 48-month snapshot. We're going to look at just the first 4 years of your mortgage. You will pay, if you pay $1,200 a month, $57,000 towards your house in 4 years. Only $12,000 of that will be reduced from your debt. The other $45,000 will go to interest. Does that look fair? Then why are we doing it? Why did we get a mortgage to buy real estate? That's what we were told to do. We walked into the bank and we said, Mr. Banker, I'm here to buy some real estate. What type of loan should I get? And he said, well, you need a mortgage, right? Let me ask you a question. Would you walk into a used car dealership and say, Mr. Car Salesman, I'm here to get a car. What type of car should I get? He says, well, you need the sports car over here, right? The $78,000 sports car. You say, okay, I got a family of 7. You need the sports car, right? They're going to plug you into whatever makes them the most money. And when you walk in and you ask the sales guy, what type of product should I buy? He's going to say, buy the one that makes me the most commission. Make sense? Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about this from a cash flow perspective. I want you guys to understand something. The reason I talked about cash flow before, the wealthy focus on cash flow more than anything else. They'll look at cash flow before they look at equity, appreciation, deductions, leverage, etc. Cash flow is king. Write that down. Cash flow is king. Okay? So let's look at this from a cash flow perspective. When you pay a loan, even if it's the first month payment and you only get to $1,200 you pay, $250 of it went to interest, how much of that $250 do you get to respend? None of it. Okay, so principal and interest disappear. That means 100% of cash flow from that payment disappears. However, with a line, they only take their 21% out. The rest of the principal is leverage on your line of credit. You get to respend it however you want. So Texas, I'm going to pick on you again, man. Would you rather pay me in a way where 100% of your cash flow disappears or 21?
21.
Good answer. See, when knowledge increases, behavior changes. So now that we understand how banking works, let's take this back and apply it to that model we were setting up. What do you say? 2 rules I want you guys to remember. First rule of velocity banking is that lines are better than loans for all the reasons I just described. Okay? Second rule is the employee mindset individual uses cash as currency. We get paid, we keep it in a cash basis in our checking account, and then we use the cash to pay bills and buy stuff. The wealthy don't do it that way. What the wealthy mindset individual does is when they get cash, they throw it all at debt. Imagine how fast you would pay off your mortgage if you took your whole paycheck and threw it at your mortgage. The problem is because your mortgage is a loan, you don't have any money left over to buy gas, groceries, and cell phone. But when we obey rule number 1 and we keep our debt in lines of credit, you can take your whole paycheck and you can throw it at the line of credit, lowering your debt balance, thereby paying less in interest, and opening up leverage to use to pay bills and buy stuff. Now that may sound overly simplistic. Let's see what happens when we apply it, okay? So we get paid, we bypass the checking account completely, and we throw it all at the line of credit. A couple of things happen. First thing's really cool. They wanted to see a $600 minimum payment come in. You gave them $5,000. Are they good this month? Yeah, they're good. They're not coming back asking for anything, right? And guess what? You're going to do it next month and the next month and the next month. Will they ever ask you for a payment again? So do we have to budget for it? Nope. $600 just went right into cash flow. Also, I think I've made it pretty clear, accumulation strategies are dumb. Right? They're for chumps. Any chumps in the room? Didn't think so. Not anymore. All right, so we're not going to do the 401k. We're not going to do the savings plan. We're not going to do the stock options. That money's just going to go to cash flow. We just found $2,000 a month in cash flow, right? We still have some payments we got to make. We still got a lifestyle we want to live. We don't want to have to adjust our lifestyle, so we'll just leave that the same. But that makes it $5,000 in, $3,000 out, and $2,000 a month going towards cash flow. Now, I said cash is velocity. When cash increases, when cash flow increases, velocity increases, we start paying off our debt even faster. And what happens is, let's graph it. We had $12,000 worth of debt in our line of credit. We threw $5,000 in it. That went down. We have $3,000 worth of bills we got to pay. It goes back up by $3,000. That's month one. All we have to do is just repeat that process over and over and over again. Some of you are saying, hey, wait a second. You told me not to save anymore. What happens if there's an emergency? Well, you've been throwing your money in a line of credit. That creates leverage. Do emergency rooms take credit cards?
Yes.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Do tire shops take credit cards? Yep. Even if you have an emergency that only takes cash, you can still take that credit card down to the ATM, slide it, and pull out some cash. Just pull it out of the line. Okay? When there's not an emergency, you just keep doing what you were doing. And guess what? This is easy math. We had $12,000 of debt. We were attacking it by $2,000 a month in cash flow. That's 6 months. What was going to take us 7 years by making a minimum payment at $600 now only takes us 6 months without getting a raise and without changing our lifestyle. All we did was change our mindset. Is this cool?
Yeah.
Good, because it gets even cooler. Get ready. Okay, now the bank looks at us and they say, man, you're really good at this debt stuff. You're you're using a lot of it. You're paying even more of it off. Your credit score's gone through the roof. We're going to give you a credit limit increase. Anybody in here ever been a victim of a credit limit increase before? All right, so you know they exist, right? We know as wealthy mindset individuals that credit and lines of credit should only be used for assets and emergencies. That means we're not going to use our credit cards anymore to go buy big screen TVs, Nelson. Or to buy swimming pools or finish the basement or put on, add a deck or whatever. We're going to use them for assets or emergencies. So basically the bank just came and gave us $10,000 to our emergency fund. When's the last time the bank came to you and said, hey, you saved like a champion. Here's $10,000 for your savings account? Never. If they do, you need to let me know where you bank because I want to get a piece of that. But no, that's not going to happen, right? When we behave like the wealthy mindset, we're rewarded like the wealthy mindset. Okay? But we got a problem now. We were dumping our money into this line of credit, and because we had debt in there, we were able to do it, right? But we paid a credit card down to zero. You can't pay a credit card below zero. So the money's just going to start flowing back into our employee mindset account, our checking and our savings. We don't want that. Well, Texas, we got a lot of really expensive debt over on the loan side, the 100% cash flow debt. We could start moving some of the debt over to the cheaper side. Anybody ever get those balance transfer checks in the mail and wonder, what the heck am I supposed to do with a check from Discover Card? Well, I got an idea. Whatever it was that you paid off on the line, in this case, we use the example of $12,000. Write the check to Wells Fargo. Let's say Wells Fargo holds the mortgage. To Wells Fargo, $12,000, principal only. Mail it off, right? And the clerk over at Wells Fargo gets the check and he looks at it, he says, oh, Texas paid down an extra $12,000 on his principal. Let's add that to the computer, right? And then Texas logs on the next day, looks at his account. His principal balance drops by $12,000 on his mortgage. Now, for Wells Fargo, same as cash, right? As far as they're concerned. Texas knows that he just put it in his line and he's just going to start attacking it the same way he did before, right? So before we were able to pay off $12,000 in 6 months, if we do the same thing, should we expect the same results? Yeah. We'll pay off $12,000 in another 6 months. Now let's make a comparison. If you remember back to that 48-month snapshot on the mortgage, it took us 4 years and cost us $45,000 in interest to pay off $12,000 worth of debt. On the line side, I put the math there for you. Type it into your calculator if you don't trust me. $12,000 times 21% annual interest, and it only took us 6 months, so I divided that by 2. It's $1,200. Right? I just saved you $45,000 on your mortgage. You're all welcome. All right, so here's the cool thing. This process takes 6 months, right? Or in this case, with these numbers, it takes 6 months. So just repeat the process over and over and over again until you pay off your mortgage. If you use this process, with these numbers, they're going to pay off a 30-year mortgage in 5 years. That's nuts. We paid off the credit card, and it was going to take us 7. We paid it off in 6 months. Where the mortgage was going to take us 30, we paid it off in 5 years, right? Now, if we don't have a mortgage anymore, we don't have a mortgage payment, where's that money go? Cash flow. Well, guess what? More cash is more velocity. That means the next thing, we're going to pay off even faster. The velocity curve gets steeper because we got more cash that we're throwing at it. So when we go attack the car, we pay that sucker off. When we don't have a car loan, we don't have a car payment, where's the car payment go? Cash flow. That's right. And you know what? Same thing happens. When we have more cash in the cash flow, we pay things off even faster. We have more velocity. Okay? The cool thing is 6 months to pay off the car, 6 months to pay off the card, 5 years to pay off the mortgage. We're at year 6, and we're completely out of debt. What we thought was going to take 40 years took 6. And we never got a raise, and we never changed our lifestyle. Anybody feeling lied to by the banks at this point? Right? Like, why didn't they tell us this? Because they wanted your money. That's why. All right, so as a debt paydown strategy, by itself, this is pretty valuable, yes? You guys feel like you've gotten some good value tonight? We could end it here, but you guys said you were here to talk about real estate. So anybody interested in taking this to the next level? Yeah. All right, let's take it to the next level. I love it. Okay, so we, in this example, this family paid off a $200,000 house. They got a piece of real estate. And one of the reasons I love real estate is because it's leverageable. So I'm going to take my $200,000 house down to the bank and say, Mr. Banker, I was here 6 years ago. You told me to get a mortgage. You were totally wrong. Don't ever tell anybody that again. But today, I'm here to get a HELOC. What's a HELOC? A home equity line of credit. Is that a loan or a line? That's a line. Does that mean it's amortized interest or simple? Simple. One directional or revolving? Oh, it's a line. So we can use lines of credit for assets or emergencies. No emergencies right now. So what are we going to do? Let's go buy some assets, right? So here's the cool thing. When the mama house meets the daddy HELOC and they fall in love, they tend to create a bunch of little baby houses, right? And okay. I love it when the mama house creates baby houses because I can rent the baby houses out and make cash flow, right? So what we do is we just take that $200,000 and we split it up in a little $10,000 or $20,000 chunks, and we go out and we make down payments. Remember the subject to thing I talked about, the prenup? Remember that? Yeah. Subject to. What I do is I find people who are about to be foreclosed on. They've missed some payments, and the bank's already sent them a letter saying, hey, we're going to kick you out. We're foreclosing on your house. You got to move, right? When I approach these people, they've already identified the apartment that they're going to move their family to for 7 years while they work on repairing their credit. Now, when I approach them, I say, hey, look, let's stop the foreclosure. I want to propose a win-win to you. I'm going to write you a check. How far are you behind? Oh, 20 grand? Okay. $20,000, I'm going to send this into your bank. We got you caught up on your mortgage. You still got to move your family. You were going to move them anyway, so still move your family to the apartment. But now instead of 7 years, it's 2 years. A 90-day late is a 2 years. I'm stopping the foreclosure for them. I get the real estate. They get credit repair. I get real estate. They were going to have to move anyway. Is this a better situation for them? Yep. It's a win-win. You know what? There are 5,800 pre-foreclosures in Salt Lake County right now. 5,800. A lot of people say yes when I approach them. And you know what? Some people say no, and that's okay too. Because there's 5,800 of them out there that I can go pick up at any time, right? I don't need everybody to say yes, and that's okay. But this is how I buy rentals. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac say that you can have 10 mortgages in your name. Good luck getting there. Anybody know what a debt-to-income ratio is? Yeah. If you try to go in and get 10 mortgages, you might get to 3, and then they're like, you got way too much DTI, right? Yeah. So you might cap out. Let's say you get to the 10. Let's say you get to 10. If we're averaging about $400 a month in cash flow per property, you max out at $4,000 a month. Now, I don't know about you, but I want to retire on a lot more than $4,000 a month. You might as well take Social Security at that point, right? So the point that I told you at the beginning, the point of this whole message is we got to create not just real estate investing businesses, but business models that are scalable. If all my mortgages on my rental properties are in other people's names, what's my limit? Infinity %, right? So there's no limit to how far I can scale it. Okay, here's the cool thing. Now, it took us 6 years to pay off all the debt. We will pay off with the increased cash flow, and using the example of $400 in cash flow per property, we picked up 10 of them, that's $4,000. Added to the cash flow that we got from paying off all of our debt, that puts us at $700, $800 a month. We continue to do velocity banking to pay off the original line of credit on the HELOC. We paid off in 2 years with $700, $800 a month. Then we start attacking the little baby houses. If the baby houses each have a $100,000 mortgage on them and we're attacking at $700, $800 a month, guess what? We'll have the first one paid for in 13 months. Now we're at 9 years. Okay? The second one will be paid for in 11 months. We're at exactly a decade. We paid off all of our debt, acquired 10 rental properties, and paid 2 of them off without ever changing our income, without ever changing our lifestyle. Pretty freaking cool, right? And we got a cash flow of $9,400. That's more than your salary in this case, right? It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool stuff. All right. Promise one fulfilled. I told you all the debt, 10 rental properties, never change income, right? Promise one fulfilled. Promise number 2, we talked about how the education will become effectively free. Now, I want to talk about the experience of one of our students, and that's what this disclaimer is for. Everybody's going to have different experiences. This is just one individual. I want to introduce you to Dane Clark. Dane joined us about 2 years ago. When he came in, he was a roofer. Now look at that red hair and fair skin, right? He was looking for a change. And he came in and he said, I heard real estate investing makes a lot of money. I make about the average American income. I got the average American credit score. What can I do? This velocity banking thing looks really cool. He went and got a $30,000 line of credit by leveraging one of my relationships at 0% for 24 months. Now, a really cool thing happens when you get 0% on your line of credit. So a $30,000 line of credit, he applied velocity banking strategy. He paid off his car with the line of credit. He had $5,000 left. He was paying $120 a month. It was going to take him 3 more years. Just paid it off, got the title back in the mail the next week, right? And his cash flow went up by $120 because he didn't have a car payment anymore. Then he bought his first asset, his investor education, $20,000. By doing velocity banking the way I just explained it to you, he paid off that $25,000 balance in his line of credit on a $45,000 a year income in 10 months. Here's the cool thing about 0%. When he put that first check in at 0%, how much did the bank take? So what percentage of his buying power did he have from his check?
All of it.
All of it. His cash flow wasn't affected at all by his purchase of his first asset, his investor education. In fact, his cash flow went up because he paid off his car. It went up by $120, right? And his expenses came out. What about this second income right there? When he put that check in, how much did the bank take? And so on for 10 months until he paid it off. Now here's the thing. At the end of 10 months, he still had 14 months of 0% interest left. So what do you think he did? He went and bought some real estate. He did it again, right? Bought another asset. He put a $20,000 down payment on a duplex. He moved his family into one side and rented out the other, and now they're cash flow even on their living situation. He basically got free equity because he paid it off at 0%. Didn't affect his cash flow at all. Okay, now some of you guys might be looking at this stuff thinking, holy cow, what is this guy talking about? Like, please get off the stage already, right? That kind of thing. And you know, if that's you, I understand. Like, you might be feeling a little bit like this, and that's okay. Right? But some of you are looking at this stuff and you're thinking, holy cow, that velocity banking thing is incredible. Like, I would love to pay off my debt in a fraction of the time. I would love to do some fix and flips. I could get some massive income, and that'd help pay off the debt. Wow, cash flow. I never thought about cash flow as a retirement strategy. That's incredible. I need to start doing that immediately, right? You might be looking at this information with this attitude. And if this is you, you're who we want to talk to. We need about 98% of you not to do this, so 2% of us can go do it and be wealthy, right? So, look, regardless of what side of the fence you fall on, I do have a favor to ask. I'm going to tell you a story. I was in New York a couple of weeks ago and doing what I do, right? This is my business. I told you I travel around the country. I was in New York. I made a mistake, though. I booked my own travel. I shouldn't have done that because I booked a red-eye flight thinking, oh, I'll just sleep on the plane. You never sleep on the plane. That's a myth. They put something in the air that keeps you awake, right? And it never happens. So I thought, well, it's 6 a.m. when I got to New York. I'll just go to my hotel and sleep, right? So I take a taxi to the hotel at 6:30 a.m. I say, I'm here to check in. What do you think they said? At 6:30 a.m. Come back at 3. That's when check-in is, right? So I call my buddy who invited me out. His name's Hugh. He runs the market out there. I say, Hugh, I did something dumb. I explained it to him. He said, no problem. Let me text you my address. You can come crash on my couch. So I gave the address to the cabbie. He drove me into Manhattan. I went up like 3,000 stories to Hugh's apartment and crashed on his couch till about noon. Don't judge me. These things are usually at night. And Hugh woke me up about noon. He said, hey, let's go get some lunch. So we got back in the elevator, went down on the street. We walked out of his apartment building, turned right, and that's what I saw. What do you see? The Empire State Building. And I've been in New York before. I've seen the Empire State Building. But for some reason, it just kind of took me back that my buddy Hugh lives right by the Empire State Building, right? And I just stood there and looked at it. And Hugh's just walking, looking down like a New Yorker, right? And he turns back and looks at me. He's like, what's going on? I say, Hugh, that's the Empire. You live by the Empire State Building. This is art. It's history. It's architecture. It's beautiful. He's like, yeah, so? I see it every day. I said, dude, don't take this for granted. Look at that thing. And then he stopped and he looked at me and said, Mitch, you live in Utah, man. Do you walk out of your house every day and say, mountains, we got mountains here, it's incredible? Quite honestly, I don't. I take them for granted because they're around me every day. Sometimes I stop and look at how beautiful they are and appreciate it, but most days I don't. The information that I've shared with you today has changed lives. Changed my life. Please don't take it for granted. Take whatever value you've gotten out of this tonight, take it home and use it, okay? Whether you choose to continue with us or not. Now, I could not fit everything that I wanted to fit into the little bit of time that they gave me tonight, so we created another workshop for you. We got a workshop tomorrow night at 6:45 p.m. right here in this building, up the stairs, where you're going to hear from Dane. The guy, the roofer guy, right? Red hair, fair skin. Dane, the student has become the facilitator. Dane's going to share with you in much more detail some of the strategies I shared with you today, as well as strategies that I didn't even get time to share with you. Okay? So let's talk about what he's going to share. He's going to crack open that vault of investor education that I showed you. And he's going to share one of our classes taught by Mark Kohler. It's called our Tax and Legal class. And he's going to share with you that strategy that I told you about where you can pay your kids under the age of 18 up to $12,000 a year tax-free. Who has kids under the age of 18 in here? Yeah. Could that be useful? I mean, this is Utah. For some of you, that's hundreds of thousands of dollars. I know for a fact that if we were to fly Mark Kohler out here, it would cost us $5,000. He charges a $5,000 speaking fee. Okay? So you're going to get that strategy just by coming tomorrow night. Now, we're also going to give you a copy of my book. By going to the back and registering for the class tomorrow, we're going to give you a free copy of my book, Mindset to Millionaire. It's a bestseller on Amazon. I'm going to be here for a little while after answering questions. If you'd like to come up and talk to me, that's fine. In fact, if you want me to sign the book, I'm happy to do that as well. We're also going to send you a data file, a velocity banking calculator. So if you're looking at velocity banking and you're thinking, well, yeah, sure, it works for example numbers, but my numbers are totally different, so it's not going to work. Well, you're wrong. It's going to work. And using this calculator, you can plug your numbers into it, and it'll tell you, hey, that 40 years of debt you thought you had, well, it's like 4. or 5. So that's very useful. I've got a friend that lives out in Hawaii. He's the CEO of a company that does something very similar. In fact, they just teach you the debt pay down version of what I taught you tonight and then give you a similar calculator. And they charge you $5,000 for that. I gave it to you for free tonight, and you're going to get this one as well. Okay? $5,000 value there. And then Dane's going to go over what we call our 3-phase plan. It's the blueprint that we plug our new students into so they can go from day one in their education. And Dane knocked out his 3-phase plan in 90 days. Who would like to see how to get into their first property in 90 days? Using other people's money. That's a valuable thing, right? So we've seen some of our competitors out there have charged, the price is wrong on here, there's an extra 9. We've seen prices with our competitors that charge $249 for a 2-day workshop. We've gotten this as low as we possibly can. Just to recap of the value, Mindset to Millionaire book is $20, 3-phase plan, $250 velocity banking calculator, $5,000, investor education, learning from Mark Kohler has a $5,000 value. That's over $10,000 worth of value. So for the low price of $9,800 a person, you guys can come back tomorrow. Just kidding. I see some very serious faces like, I can't afford that. Well, we're not going to charge you $9,800. Actually, we've gotten this as low as we possibly can for you. There's a cost to renting the college. There's a cost to renting the seats and the stage and the lights and the projectors and all that stuff. And our cost is $50 per person. So for $50 per person, you can come back and see us tomorrow night. Now, my investors that are working with us in our community, raise your hands. Look around, folks. These people are going to pay for your seats tomorrow. You guys get to come absolutely free. All I need you to do is go to the back table, register for the class tomorrow so we know how many seats to reserve, get the book, get all the value that we promised you, and we'll see you tomorrow night. Thank you so much. Drive safe. Hey, Chase. Nice fun, man. How you doing? Thanks for coming.